hour today because I know many of you have to get back to work, so we'll try to have a hard stop in 1 hour. So welcome to York and Martin Library. This is the York Daily Record's second Fixing York Town meeting. I'm Scott Fisher. I'm editorial page editor for the Daily Record, and I'm glad you're able to make it out today and find parking and make it up here and so forth. And so I'm really glad that you're able to find a spot to park, and we should be grateful for our plow drivers in York and for the great job they did. Maybe a round of applause for the work that they did.
I've been all over the state, and you guys hold the record for most snow on the ground right now. And that's Philadelphia, Bethlehem, you name it. So.
So, happy Groundhog Day. Unfortunately, our local prognosticators said we're going to have 6 more weeks of winter, but you could move to Punxsutawney if you want and get some spring sooner. So, do you have a marmot out there?
Maybe an hour and a half away, so okay. We rely on his wisdom for our weather.
Okay, anyway, after our last Fixing York event here at Martin Library, folks were asking us, well, do you plan to hold follow-up meetings? And obviously the answer is yes, because here we are today. We're going to have a series of events focused on what we can do to improve our community over the course of this year. Some of the details are still to come, but I can give you a little preview of one thing that we're going to be doing later this fall, we hope. The good folks at Martin Library, and first we want to thank them for allowing us to be here in the building today. They want to team up with us to hold what they're terming a teen town meeting, and we think that's going to be a really neat idea where we bring teens and young people together to talk about what we can do to improve our life in York for teen folks. So we're excited about that. So let me get started with introductions. Mike Argento is an award-winning columnist for YDR. He's practically an institution in York, and some of his critics might say institutionalized, yeah. Mike recently wrote a well-received profile of Mayor Fetterman, and so I want to introduce our guest of honor today. Mr. Fetterman is a York County native. He's a graduate of Central York High School. He's also a graduate of Harvard University. He's been called America's coolest mayor by the New York Times, and he's famous for his efforts to turn around his struggling city of Braddock, a Pittsburgh suburb. Now, of course, he's running for U.S. Senate as a Democrat in the primary. And so after reading Mike's piece about Mayor Fetterman, our Fixing York crew got together and thought it would be interesting to bring him to town and see what his thoughts are on, you know, what has he done to fix his community, what are we doing to fix ours, what are the comparisons and the contrasts, and what can we learn from the efforts in trying to improve our small Pennsylvania cities. So, welcome, Mayor, and we appreciate it. I should also note that Mayor Fetterman is going to be at the Holy Hound this evening from 5 to 7 for kind of a meet and greet type event, and so you're welcome to that. And I also want to note that this session is going to be being live streamed at ydr.com, and it will be on our YDR's YouTube channel. So if you'd like to go back and look at it later or share it with somebody, please be happy if you would do that. All right, so Mike is going to start the questioning, but I want to make it clear that we want your involvement and your questions and your thoughts, and so we're going to leave plenty of time at the room at the end of the session or for the second half of the session to talk to the audience and have a little dialogue. So with that, I'll put it to you.
Thank you. This chair is not a valuable antique, is it?
I hope not. I told them there may be problems with the chair.
I mean. It's like, yeah.
So to start off, just tell everybody just briefly about your background. Sure. And what led you to Braddock and led you to be elected mayor.
Sure. Well, my background is, I was just reminiscing with my family earlier today. We moved here, I was born in Reading Hospital in 1969, and we moved here to York in January of 1975. So literally this past December was our 40th anniversary of moving here. We've been here in York. I grew up we've been in the same house for 40 years in Spring and Spray Township. And my father's company, Kling Brothers Insurance, is just 5-minute walk away on King Street, across the street from the police station. And again, they've been there for 40 years. And I've been a lifelong resident here in York. As they said, it was a class of, I'm embarrassed, like 1987. Like my 30th anniversary is coming up next year, and they, you know what they say, the days are long, but the years are short, and I can't believe it's been 30 years. And our old steel, I haven't gone to the new school, but the old one, because close by, that's where I went. And my background, I went to Albright College, where my father went for undergraduate, and I went to Harvard for graduate school. And I'm mayor of Braddock, Pennsylvania. And Braddock is an incredibly rich and historic community. It's where Andrew Carnegie had his first steel mill that really helped change the world. And it's actually home to the last steel mill in Pittsburgh, which would be like the last brewery in Milwaukee, you know. So it's, or the last Starbucks in Seattle. I mean, it's really, you know, it's the industry that defined that region in my community, and to have all of that gone. And if anyone follows the news, U.S. Steel isn't exactly killing it right now. They're not doing well at all. So I've been mayor now there for 11 years. Up here in the corner is my lovely wife, Giselle. You know, don't be afraid to ask, you know, how did you convince a woman that attractive to marry someone that looks like me? I constantly marvel at that myself. But Giselle has made an equal, if not much more important contribution to town through her efforts that have eliminated food and clothing insecurity for our residents and nearby residents. And I'm running for the United States Senate because I believe that, you know, Pennsylvania's cities, whether it's my community of Braddock or York, need a champion. And this morning I got a chance to see all these great projects that are going on in York, and it was just really inspiring. So you guys are doing some really great things here, and I was taking notes, not giving them. So it's been a great visit so far.
So when you were first elected mayor, what kind of shape was Braddock, and what did you find there?
Well, is everyone familiar with you know, Flint, Michigan, especially with the water crisis that's unfolding? To put that in perspective, Flint lost around half of its population from its height, whereas my community of Braddock lost 90% of its population. You know, it went from an incredibly prosperous community to, I would say, essentially the poorest community in the state. And I showed up in 2001, and it was a place that had the issues that you might expect. It had endemic gun violence, it had entrenched poverty, it had, you name it, it had those challenges. And I came to Braddock to start a GED program to help young people kind of get their lives on track, because that's what I wanted to spend my life doing. Because how I came to Braddock is an unusual tale in that I had some life experiences occur where I decided that, you know, I've been very fortunate in my upbringing. I grew up in York. I had great parents, and so many, you know, people in our, you know, society don't have the benefit of that. And I wanted to spend my professional career, if I could help and if I could make things better, just doing that. So, you know, Braddock was, you know, really kind of at, you know, at its lowest. I think that's when, you know, 2000, 2001 is when it bottomed out.
So what kinds of things did you do immediately to try to address some of the needs? I know there were so many things in Braddock that were just basic needs that people
in 2001, I was only a program director. So the needs that I was addressing was, you know, dozens and dozens of young people, you know, were getting their GED. And let me just tell you how important adult education is. I know it occurs here in the library, but you know, for every adult learner that gets their GED, they earn over $200,000 a year over the course of their working life. It's a huge thing that I don't think it receives enough attention. So, long story short, I GED program director for several years, and a couple years into that, 2 of my students were gunned down a couple weeks apart, and I decided that I really wanted to change this, but I couldn't do it as a program director, so I decided to run for mayor. And then that takes us to 2005, and I won that first election because the young people that I worked with and that I helped get their GEDs, a job, their driver's license, what have you, ended up campaigning for us and knocking on doors. And you know, they were my campaign staff because, as you can see, you know, I make the joke that I wouldn't knock on a door if I knocked on it if I didn't know me. I was just in Philadelphia for an event last week, and it was in the evening, and I was walking to it from my hotel, and I had two people, independently strangers, stop me and say, "You're the man, I'm going to vote for you." And I was feeling pretty good, but then I had two strangers independently cross the street to avoid me, thinking I was going to mug them. So it's a double-edged sword with my appearance. But at any rate, they served as my validators. Like, they said, "Look, this is a good guy. He helped us get our GEDs. He's really, doing the right things." And I won that first election by one vote because of the work that they've done. And I tell people this because it's absolutely true. I wouldn't be sitting here in front of you were it not for that one person that cast that provisional ballot that day. They were even actually told that they couldn't vote, but they cast their provisional ballot. So I am a living embodiment of the cliche, but it's true that every vote counts, every vote matters.
And tell us some of your accomplishments as
Sure.
mayor, and then also try to describe what kind of obstacles you faced, other than the obvious being money.
Well, I really say this because I really believe it. Like, I genuinely don't think I have any accomplishments in Braddock. All we have is good outcomes that were made possible through partnerships, that we have been able to create in Braddock. And the one that I'm most proud of is that we went 5.5 years in our town without the loss of life, any murders in town. People ask me, what are these numbers on your arm? This one's our zip code, 15104 there. And this one is a much sadder one, in that these dates represent the homicides that we've had in our town since I've been mayor. Let me tell you, it's a wrenching process to see the senseless loss of life. There are 9 dates on my arm, and 7 of them were through handguns, and the other 2 were from other issues. Bringing that down and bringing that to heal is the thing that I'm most proud of. Other things that we've accomplished. We've eliminated food and clothing security for our residents, largely through the efforts of my wife Giselle and her free store, which repurposes surplus food and clothing and baby items. Braddock's a community where no child ever has to go without food, diapers, formula, clothes, you name it. And it doesn't cost anybody anything because of the ingenious way my wife designed that. Braddock had a beautiful hospital, 270,000 square feet. When it closed, UPMC, if you haven't heard of UPMC, you will. Soon they are taking over the state healthcare systems. They decided to bail on the poorest community. We went 5 years without healthcare, but through a compelling partnership with Highmark and Allegheny Health Network, we restored healthcare to our community. We created a drastic reduction in crime, but we also did it without any corresponding civilian complaints or things. So I like to think that we perfected the community policing model, where we have the cooperation and the full support of the residents that we police, and it's not a system of where residents feel occupied or they feel that their rights aren't being respected. We've brought small businesses into town. We've been able to stop a highway they were going to run an interstate through our town. So basically any urban issue that is around, we have it in a very strong concentration.
Now, you said you spent some time walking around York. What would be your assessment of York and its progress?
York is, this is not a politician's pandering. I've always been a huge fan of downtown York. My family's had a business in downtown York for 40 years. And York has some of the most magnificent architecture of any city you'll find in the country. I tell people in Pittsburgh, you guys have amazing markets downtown. Like, we don't have an incredible farmers market like you guys do here in Pittsburgh, because they tore ours down in the late 60s or 70s for urban renewal. And the amazing architecture that York has, and today I got to see great examples of how it's being reused and adaptive reuse. I got to go on the roof of the Yorktown Hotel, like for 40 years, and just seeing all the great things that are going on, and It's really encouraging, quite frankly, because people are starting to appreciate all the things that I've always appreciated about York. And it's got great bones, beautiful architecture, amazing walkability, and it's just really great to see that's coming back, that there's an urbanist attitude that's really starting to flourish at its downtown core.
Are there any ideas from York that you could take back to Braddock that perhaps help you out, and vice versa? Are there things that you're doing in Braddock that could help out York?
Oh, no, well, sure. I mean, just the things that, I want him to come and make some pretzels in my town. I joked, I joked that it's going to cost me votes in Philadelphia, but I had the best damn pretzel of my life there. And I'm like, I don't care if it costs me votes. I got to go on record by saying this. And just seeing all the different things, it's really inspiring. And downtown York is light years ahead of where Braddock, is and probably could ever be, within the next 10 years. Because, 90% of my community is in a landfill. When you lose 90% of your population, you lose 90% of your buildings and your homes and all these other things. So if you look at our main drag, our main thoroughfare, it's like you think of it as a mouth with teeth. And, if you pulled 9 out of 10 of your teeth, there wouldn't be many left. And so we're dealing with different issues where, thankfully, you guys have most of your beautiful architecture intact, and you can always come back from that, whereas Braddock, we have that challenge on top of it where, we don't have as many of our buildings left. So you guys are doing some really wonderful work, and to be commended.
What kinds of things do you think York could do in the area of crime, drugs, and poverty? Sure. And what kinds of things have you done in Braddock that may translate to York?
Yeah, I don't want to get in the place of telling York or anyone. I'm not in the fix-it business because.
Well, we're just looking for advice.
Yeah.
Not.
Well, no, but I mean, it's like any advice I would give is that you have to embrace. I think a holistic, community-based policing strategy that we have, and public safety precedes everything. If there is the perception or the reality or a combination thereof that it's unsafe or something's, that is always going to hinder economic development. And we had to tackle that first in Braddock. And it was great. I went to a beer distributor this morning, and I found out that you guys screened Blood, Sweat, and Beers, which is a movie at the Strand, which documents the struggles of the brewery that opened in our community. And it demonstrates just how important it is to from a moral perspective as well as from a civic perspective to perfect the policing model, because you've seen what happens across the country when that community policing isn't being honored. So York is wonderful, and I see so many great things happening here, and I visit often. We come in once every 3 months, so I have nothing but high marks, to give to York. It's really inspiring.
Well, one of the things they've done in downtown York, particularly, is that they've really used the creative community and the artistic community to spur some development. A lot of galleries and a lot of events. Have you done? You've done something similar in Braddock.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like the things, there's so much parallel what we've been trying to do in Braddock and what's going on here in York, and it's wonderful, and it's reaching out to people in the suburbs and reaching out to others and saying, look, there's a lot of great stuff coming. There's great stuff to do, and you will attract people. You're not going to get everybody. If your idea of a great night out is to go to Applebee's and maybe catch a movie, great. I mean, but you're not probably going to want to go downtown York. But if you're open-minded and you know that there's great things going on, you'll have a great time. And it's the same argument and same pitch that we make to people in Pittsburgh, where we attract gallery openings. When we have food truck roundups in town, we have 1,500 people come out. The fact that we have people enjoying Braddock Avenue at 9 o'clock, 9:30 at night with small children is something that I never would have anticipated possible, even 5 years ago, given the challenges that we faced.
Okay. The one story I really like is when you first moved to Braddock, you lived in the abandoned, was it a Greek church? And then later you were able to convince Levi's somehow to fund turning that into a community center. Can you tell us that story?
Sure. The first place that I lived in Braddock was a basement of an abandoned church. My father, who couldn't be here today, he's actually on kiddie patrol watching his grandsons. I said to him, like, Dad, I want to buy this abandoned church, and I want to turn it into a community center someday. And in probably the greatest act of, father-son love, he's like, okay, I'll help, And I didn't have to twist his arm, and I wish I could acknowledge him publicly if he was here, but he made a donation to the nonprofit that I had started, and he, didn't, he's just, it's amazing. It was an abandoned church in rough shape in downtown Braddock, and my father helped. That's what started it. And I lived in that basement for the first 9 months while I was working on my home. And in 2009, 2010, we were contacted by the Levi Strauss Company, and they said, we really appreciate what you're doing in Braddock, and we want to make your community the center of our marketing campaign. And everyone knows Levi's is an iconic brand, but the brand had kind of fallen into disrepair, for lack of a better phrase. It wasn't trendy. It didn't resonate with young people the way it did. So they were trying to reinvent that image, and they launched the campaign featuring all Braddock residents, and they donated enough money to our nonprofit to fix up an abandoned church, the one that I was living in, and it's turned into our community's youth center. And we named it after a little girl in town that memorialized her. So it was a great public-private partnership, and also put the focus on Braddock, where it's like you have an American iconic brand like Levi's featuring, a town like Braddock.
We've also had films made in Braddock, or partially made in Braddock, like The Road, and out of this
post-apocalyptic America. They know where to come. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's great for tourism. It's like, if you like good post-apocalyptic America, come visit. But yeah, they call us, our nickname is Hollywood on the Mon, which Mon is short for the Monongahela River, which runs right past our town. One of the first movies was The Road, which is Cormac McCarthy, and if you're familiar with his work, it's like it's not sunshine and lollipops. But they were looking. The Road takes place in kind of post-apocalyptic America, and they needed like a section of a town that looked like that, to give you an idea of what Braddock looks like. So that was the first movie. The really great movie and there was an unfortunate Katherine Heigl movie film there, which I think is kind of redundant, but the one movie that was really special is called Out of the Furnace, and it was directed by a gentleman named Scott Cooper, who directed Jeff Bridges to his Oscar in Crazy Heart, and he called me. I was at Costco picking up stuff for the free store, and it was a phone call from Los Angeles, and I was like, hello? He's like, John, this is Scott Cooper. I directed Crazy Heart. I want to make a movie in your town, and we'd love to start soon, and what can you do? And I'm like, I thought it was like Ashton Kutcher, I was being punked or whatever, and I was like, really? No, seriously, who is this? And he's like, no, honestly, it is, and I promise you, we need help from the governor's office for a tax credit. The movie, Christian Bale is signed on, Woody Harrelson's signed on, all these people are signed on, and it has, I think, 7 Academy Award nominees and 3 winners, Forrest Whitaker, giants in their field, and long story short, Out of the Furnace was filmed in Braddock, and it takes place in Braddock. My humble brag is always, they put my zip code tattoo on Christian Bale's neck in the movie as like a little tribute, and let me tell you, it's not uplifting. So if you want to watch a really, it's kind of like a tribute to the deer hunter, and just like a testament to what has happened to communities like Braddock all across the country. But and we've done all other kinds of films, TV shows, you name it. I get pitched a reality show every month, I think, and I always turn them down because I don't believe it's dignified. Like, it's like Dog the Bounty Hunter and now Mayor John. It doesn't help. So, it's an incredibly unique space and place, and I think that's what attracts like Hollywood, because of its uniqueness.
And how interesting when they find it just following you to Costco and picking up,
Yeah, exactly.
bread rolls
No,
and...
when people find out how boring my life is, it's always like, oh, geez, not a great idea here, so.
Well, back to the movie, my favorite part of that story is that when they needed a dive bar, they went to Heidi's, right on the outside of town.
Yeah, it's just to give you an idea, it's like this bunker-like bar underneath a bridge, literally. And the director joked, it's like, this bar is too authentic. We have to dial it back for the movie, Because they had signs hanging on it saying, warning, anyone caught selling crack will be expelled from the premise. I mean, just like not exactly what you do to foster like a great business climate, but he's like, yeah, we have to actually dial Heidi's back a little bit for the movie. But you get a great burger there, and if anyone comes, I'd be happy to take you. Yeah, it's got like some incredibly authentic stuff that you just can't find anywhere. And Heidi's abuts this amazing abandoned steel mill called the Cary Furnace site, which is where the movie climax occurs. And that's being repurposed as this amazing multi-use brownfield site that is going to continue to help drive economic development in the area.
When they also, looking for authentic, they cast the bartenders, the crusty old bartenders.
Yeah, they use actually the people that are in there, and that's a funny story too. Woody Harrelson, I mean, and if anyone's ever met him or know of him, like he's honestly like the nicest guy you'll ever meet. Like he's a vegan, he's so laid back, but he was cast as the villain in the movie, and he said to the woman who was the bartender, he's like, look, I have to be this mean, please don't take it personally, because the line in the movie is not a nice line, where the line is, go get your fat ass back in there and fix me a burger. And he was like apologizing 10 times before he had to say the line, because he was like, he didn't want to hurt her feelings. But everyone on the cast and crew was awesome. It's just surreal. And what was funny is that when Scott was kicking around the movie, Christian Bale was actually in Pittsburgh filming Batman. And he would wander around in the evenings incognito, and I'm like, thank God nothing happened, But to know that you had, Batman wandering around your town incognito is one of those interesting stories that I'll always take with me. So.
Okay. At this point, we'd like to open the floor up to questions, if anyone has any. I'm sure you do. Comments, questions, anything?
How big is that?
Braddock was originally a community of 20,000 residents, and now it's somewhere below around 3,000 and 2,500. So it's, again, sustained a population loss of about 90%.
Yeah, your community policing, the community policing thing that you did in Braddock. Mm-hmm. I'm kind of interested in how that came about, and how the public, you said that the public appreciated it, or the public did not reject it. We had a Guardian Angel group come through here many years ago, and a lot of the rejection of the community, I think, is this is another vigilante group or some other type of group like that are going to put their values or their wants on the whole community. So I was just kind of curious on how that developed and how it went by.
Great question. When I started as mayor, the starting salary, if you want to call it a salary, for a patrolman in Braddock was $7.86 an hour. This was only 2006. It's not like this was, 1974. And you would get people two kinds, basically. People that were using it to get training and, kind of cut their teeth, and then get a job in a suburban department or the Pittsburgh Police Department, which is perfectly understandable. Or you would have people that probably shouldn't be, the kind of caliber police officer that you need. So we were able to get a great chief that shared the philosophy that I always say that I'm pro-police, but I'm also pro-Black Lives Matter, because both sides need each other, and you have to have a police chief that understands and respects that, and you have to hire police officers that understand that an arrest is the last outcome that you want, whether it's de-escalation, whether it's mutual respect, whether it's just having an understanding that there are some things that you just have to understand what's the priority and what's important and what needs to be addressed versus why create a confrontation that doesn't need to, like what happened with, say, Tamir Rice. just this understanding that that it's important for the community to see what you're here to do, and also to understand that they want the same things, but they also want to feel like they're part of the process. And to me, we went through a period where we had to be more aggressive than we would have wanted to because we had serious issues. And then once they see and they realize what you're trying to do, that there's enormous support. I won my first election by 1 vote, and my last election in 2013, I won 8-to-1 margin. So, and Braddock is 80% African American. So, having that kind of validation from the people that appreciate your efforts is, democratically speaking, that's how I know that we're on the right track and we do the right thing. We also created some great partnerships with outside law enforcement agencies too that allowed us to help take care of things that we needed to. This might be controversial, I don't know, but I think we in this country need to re-examine our marijuana policy. I think that would help dramatically in terms of crime and the things that occur. 2 months ago we had someone in our community that was shot because he was carrying $1,500 of marijuana. You wouldn't shoot someone for a 6-pack of beer because you can buy it legally, and but we in the state are locking up people for a product that you could drive to Colorado and fill up your trunk, and it's like you get thank you sir, have a nice day. It's so I think encompassing all of those different approaches and understanding that the net goal is to do it in a way that makes the police safer, that makes the community safer, and at the end of the day, that we have a community that is it's the basis of new economic development, and it's the basis of an ongoing dialogue that we have between the police and the mayor and the residents.
Hi there. Just following up on that, can you tell me, do the police officers live in Braddock?
No, we might have one shortly that lives in Braddock, but currently we're an Act 47 community, and for those of you that don't know what Act 47 is, it means that we are a distressed municipality. And as a result, we are barred from state law, of having a full-time police officers. We are not able to pay benefits. We are barred by state law. So we have 15 part-time officers and a full-time chief, and none of them live in Braddock proper.
And you told us the racial demographics of Braddock. What about of the police officers?
The police officers is reversed. It's about 20% African American officers. 80% of our officers are Caucasian, white.
Drug issue. What about heroin? That's
sure. Heroin is one of the great scourges in my community and all across Pennsylvania. There has been dozens and dozens of drug overdose deaths in western Pennsylvania from heroin, and in a lot of ways you can trace that back to the pain pills that the pharmaceutical companies created. Molecularly, they're very similar to heroin, and an OxyContin pill, I think on the street goes for $40, $50, $60, but heroin goes for $10 a shot. So if you've developed an addiction to pain pills and you need to feed that addiction, eventually you're going to run out of money and you're going to turn to heroin. And heroin has been a real issue in my community. We just this past summer we had somebody overdose and crash into the pole right in front of our home. In fact, my wife and I hosted a Narcan training in our home back in December because it's that much of an issue that we want to get out in front of. In terms of heroin addiction, I fundamentally believe that we need to be treating it like the medical issue that I believe that it is, not the criminal issue, because it's a serious issue. If there was a serial killer out there killing as many people as heroin is, you'd have the FBI, every major federal resource in to bring that to heal, because I mean it's ripping families apart, and it's tearing up communities. I mean it's a shame, and I also have to say that it's become more mainstream accepted to want to help, and unfortunately I think that's because it's starting to affect more affluent and more, quite frankly, white families, because you have the gateway of the pain pills there. And I guess it's good to have attention on addiction overall and what I think our country needs to do, but I don't think it should have taken this long. And that's it's an ongoing issue. And has anyone ever seen anyone in overdose? But the miracle of Narcan is, like as soon as it goes in, it's like Pulp Fiction, where it's, in fact, I just read an article that drugstores in New York are going to start carrying it over the counter, because it's that big of a problem. And I think we're finally starting to have important conversations on the topic, and that in and of itself is encouraging.
Hi, I'm a local York person, and I have a business here in York, and I do mental health and am trying to go through the process of becoming a licensed drug and alcohol provider for prevention type services. And I understand you're going to be running for Senate. To do the drug and alcohol application, it's taken me several months. I started in July, and I'm just getting a site visit on Wednesday, and it's taken me maybe 100+ pages worth of me writing, information to try to get approved. Is there anything that you might be able to do, or do you have any thoughts about the bureaucracy of trying to become a drug and alcohol licensed facility?
Yeah, there isn't anything, unfortunately, I can help now. If I'm elected, hey, give me a call, call me maybe, but I'm not measuring the drapes in my Senate office just yet. But no, I first, congratulations on being a small business person. I know how hard that is, given my family's. And two, thank you for the work that you do, because it's incredibly needed, and it's something that, we can never have too much of. Thirdly, I'm sorry for the troubles and the challenges that you're facing from the bureaucracy side of it. I can't intelligently speak on the process, given that I have gone through it myself. But I would just ask that you don't give up, because it's, you're doing incredibly important work, and I know it'll all work out. I mean, I've had some frustrating things and red tape and what have you for different things that we've done, but at the end of the day, I know it's always been worth it, because these are the kind of things that need to happen, and far too many people give up, or they don't even try to take it on. So thank you.
Are you able to utilize some of the church services, which my local church calls a mission work camp?
Braddock still has any number of congregations, but unfortunately, they're not as participatory as some other churches are. Speaking of churches, it was neat to walk past. I got confirmed at Christ Lutheran Church, right around the corner, and I was joking my dreaded catechetical classes at 3 o'clock on every Sunday afternoon when I was 12. But in terms of churches, one of the things that's really filled that role of churches in town is my wife's free store. We've been able to, we get support from churches and we get referrals from churches, but we've mostly been doing the things kind of under our nonprofit umbrella as opposed to through local churches. And I think that comes from a lot of local churches are just struggling to keep their own doors open and their own lights on and their own heat on, so.
One thing that some of the churches that I know in this area go other places. I did not.
You mean they leave here?
Yes.
Oh yeah. No, we don't have congregations, leaving. We just have congregations that.
I'm sorry.
The help.
Oh, to help. Oh yeah. No, definitely. Absolutely. And I know in Pittsburgh there's a lot of active organizations that are faith-based, but I can only speak to my community in my area that a lot of it comes from my wife's free store. But we would certainly encourage partnerships, and you guys partner with churches at all?
A few churches have active members that will bring in the
But churches from volunteers come and work at the free store, but in terms of kind of doubling up, it's
We get a lot of referrals. In Christmas we try to partner with a few and bring their groups over to the store. So we
Hi, good afternoon. I'm here in representation of the Hispanic community. And first of all, thank you for being here. And I would like to know what is the percent in your community of Hispanic community.
You're looking at it? Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I say that tongue in cheek, but not by much, you know. My wife's Brazilian, but yeah, she's holding it down for yeah, there you go. So, and my wife was born in Brazil. She lived there for the first 9 years of her life, and her mother brought her to this country, and I'm so grateful every day that she did.
As a mayor in a poor town, how did you deal with the delinquent landlords in the area of in your community and how they treat their tenants?
Sure. It's a real problem, and I'd be lying if I said that we've mastered that skill, because in many cases they live hundreds of miles away. I mean, sometimes they live in Florida or some, you know, but the ones that are local, you exercise the limits of the law and put appropriate pressure on them to be accountable, and ultimately work with the tenants themselves to say the ultimate leverage is your rent every month. And if there's a serious issue that we can agree on, that's a code violation or some kind of injustice, that you know, I've worked with tenants saying, don't pay your rent, we will work with you, and you know, we know the local magistrate, and we will be on your side in working this out. And we've been successful in bringing a lot of those issues and resolving those. You know, just kind of acknowledging, letting the landlord know that, like, look, what you're doing is wrong. We agree with the tenant, and we know a lot more about this end than you do living wherever you're living. So either you can fix it and we can all, you know, stay friends, or you know, you're not going to get paid, and we're going to support those actions because you're not holding up your end of the bargain as a landlord.
I have a question about the age makeup of your...
I like your Levi's jacket, by the way. Thank you.
If you only knew how old this was.
Yeah.
It's older than, it's
I'm
older
telling you,
than
you can sell it for like $300. Old Levi's stuff goes for a fortune.
Well, I'll get mugged walking out of here. Oh, I didn't mean that the way it sounded. The age makeup of your community is what I'm curious about, especially where it comes to elder people. Mm-hmm. Has that kind of diminished?
Yeah, the elderly are diminishing because the elderly people that are living there... what's that?
In the mayor's speech.
Yes, okay. Yes. Where I was going with this is that the elderly folks that are living in town generally were the ones that have lived there their whole lives. You know.
Are they pretty much a situation where they're stranded there?
No, they're actually living there because they want to stay there. I can give you some really inspiring anecdotes. Shortly after I was elected mayor, I was at our post office, and this sweet little lady comes up and she's like, you know, I have numbers on my arm too, you know, and I was like, oh, okay, you know, like, and then I finally realized I knew what she was talking about, and she rolled up her sleeve, and it was from Auschwitz, you know, and you think of the life that you know she saw and what she came through. And we have a lot of those there. There's a woman that lives on one of our streets, Washington Avenue, and she was born in the house that she lived in her whole life. She's 88 years old, and she's like, they're going to carry me out of here in a pine box. And what she has seen is the most remarkable transformation of a community that I can, you know, when she was born, Braddock had everything. And when she moves on, she will have seen the entire arc that mirrors the American experience, you know, from massive industrial powerhouse to, you know, to barely holding on. And I just, you know, what she's seen would just make a fascinating, you know, more fascinating than any Ken Burns documentary. So.
Are you seeing new growth with young people?
We're very prolific in attracting people to move out here. One of our nicknames is, you know, Pittsburgh's Brooklyn, you know, where, and you can buy a home for, you know, $7,000, $8,000, $9,000, $10,000 and fix it up. So, and one of the benefits to, people can't believe that, by the way. Like if I'm talking in New York or someplace, they're like, what did you say? You know, how, you can't rent a parking space annually for that. We're close enough to Pittsburgh where you can kind of piggyback off that. So, so if you're more of a DIYer, or if you want to kind of roll up your sleeves in a more non-traditional community, you know, we compare very favorably, and we've seen home price appreciation, and you know, stuff that goes on the market, you know, gets snapped up pretty quickly by families and by young people, instead of Section 8 landlords that just plan to just kind of, you know, get tenants in there as long as they can, and then eventually just kind of walk away from it. So.
Good morning. I'm concerned about, when I listen to the media today, the national media, the state media, and also our political representatives, even here locally, about the lack of any real positive advocacy for our older urban centers. And I'm talking not just the cities like York down to Braddock, but even little boroughs that are all over this state. They have, when you just talked about the people in Braddock, mentioning their histories and so forth, to me, that's positive urban advocacy. It gives one reason why people living out in the countryside or out in little towns 20 miles from here should give a rip about what happens here in Pennsylvania's older communities.
Did my campaign give you that question to ask? Because, like,
no,
that's right up my wheelhouse, and that's why I'm running. Is because, to
be honest with you, I mean,
I mean, I couldn't agree with you more.
I've been dealing with this for 30-some years.
There are so many communities across this state that, you know, that just need investment, and neighborhoods like Braddock. Private dollars will only follow public dollars, and we need to invest in these communities, and communities that have given so much to not only the state but to the country. You know, I mean, you wouldn't do that to a person when they get old and they have trouble taking care of themselves. Like, well, you're done. You know, good luck. It's like, you know, like every city deserves a basic level of dignity, and they deserve investment, and that's again, that's a big reason why I'm running, and that's why I'm wondering if they planted that question, because I'm dying, you know, thank you for asking, because it gave me a chance to just talk about one of my passions and that is communities like York, communities like Braddock, communities like Bethlehem. You know, I met with the former mayor of Bethlehem last week, and I said, your town's DNA came from my town. And it's like, Charles Schwab was the plant supervisor at Edgar Thompson, the plant that I live across from. He went to Bethlehem and founded Bethlehem Steel. And it's like, we all have some shared DNA in these towns across PA, and they need reinvestment, and they need somebody that understands that. It's like, you know, with a little bit of money, you know, the Yorktown Hotel could be something that could help revitalize the entire downtown and be the envy, like, you know, like, or if you know, like, if people in York could appreciate what in Portland, Oregon, you'd have knife fights for buildings like that here in York, you know, if they were in Portland. And investing in those kind of spaces, you know, that's what we need in Pennsylvania, is someone that understands that.
John, I'm going to exercise a little editorial prerogative and ask a semi-related question to that. One of the things that we've talked about a lot in York County is regional cooperation, suburbs helping urban centers and so forth. What kind of experience do you have on that front? Do you experience the resistance that we've seen here in York County to that?
Well, sure. I always said that I would gladly sign myself out of a job. You know, Allegheny County is famous for having a lot of small municipalities that at one point made sense 70 years ago when their populations were dramatically higher. And I'm for regionalization, I'm for cooperation, and when in the lack of it, that's what happens to communities like the small towns where they don't have the kind of resources that they need to thrive in the kind of investment, you know. So, you know, we're lucky. We have great relationships with county government, and they're the ones that, you know, they help drive our economic development, and outside partnerships. You know, when I took office, I said, look, the answers to a better Braddock do not lay exclusively within our borders. We need outside cooperation. We need outside investment. We need outside people to care about these circumstances. And we've made that appeal in that case for the last 11 years, whether it's you come out and support our businesses, whether you, I mean, I had a self-described beer nerd from Seattle, like grab me in Whole Foods and say, I got to tell you this, dude. The Brew Gentleman, that's the best beer I've ever had, you know? And it's like you have, you know, like you have people like that kind of, you know, you give them a reason to come out and they take you up on it. And if you make yourself agreeable to working with other governmental agencies, you know, we got more bus routes, you know, with the Port Authority. We've gotten great collaboration with Allegheny County. So it's something that is vital to any small community, is to foster those relationships.
Is there anything that you think that needs to be done at the state level, possibly in the legislature, to foster that kind of regional cooperation?
I just know that no one's going to force it because politically, you know, it's a hot potato. So really, it's just a matter of investing. You know, there are so many great grassroots organizations, and I spent my morning here in New York with them, and it really just comes down to more investment in cities like York, and you know, and let them take it from there. You know, they've done great work. They just need some, you know, continuing investment in resources, and the suburbs will start believing, and they'll start coming back into it, and that's what's happening in Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh's now the most livable city in the country, and you, excuse me, have empty nesters, and you have boomerang kids, you know, where they grew up in Pittsburgh, they left for a couple years, realized, hey, this is pretty great, and I met some York boomerangs, and it's like, you know, that should become a thing, you know. And when I saw those lofts down on George Street a couple years ago, I wanted to become one, but I had a day job. But yeah, you know, again, this is not political pandering. You know, what I saw today in York, you know, like honestly, I grew up in York. I know everything about York, and it's very bullish. You know, I really love what I've seen. You know, it's really been impressed.
Okay, John. I don't know how Act 47 necessarily affects you, but with only 2,000 residents, and I assume a number of them would be renters and stuff, how does your tax base support a lot of these operations?
Yeah, our tax base is struggling, and our residents are, you know, almost uniformly poor. So it is a real challenge, you know. So, you know, we have very limited services, and we aren't able to do the kind of things that other cities do, but we manage to get by. But our story is not much different than, you know, maybe have you heard of McKeesport or Clareton or Johnstown or Altoona? If you just grow Braddock size, you have Gary, Indiana. You know, if you grow Gary, Indiana, you have Detroit. You know, it's all the same issues. It's just in terms of size and scope, and you know, we've been able to, you know, Braddock has the level of scope and scalability that allows you to, you know, begin to work and take on these challenges in a way that, you know, I think provide valuable lessons and insights for the conditions that you see in cities all across, you know, the state. I mean, I've personally been appalled by what's happened in Flint. You know, I mean, can we even count on clean water? And that's very real. Like, and I say to people, I'm like, and actually, that's hardly the worst thing that's happened to Flint. You know, I mean, you look I mean, you know, and most people don't know this. You know what the poorest city in the country is above a certain size? Anyone? Reading, Pennsylvania. Yeah, Reading, Pennsylvania, where I was born and where I went to undergraduate. It actually edged out Flint, Michigan a couple years ago, and that's shocking to me personally, and that's why I think, you know, they need somebody in the Senate that understands that, you know, we need a champion for cities like this across the state.
Well, with the lack of resources, what kinds of creative things have you done
Sure.
there? What kinds of things have you done that?
Public-private partnerships. Pittsburgh has a very vital philanthropic community. Pittsburgh has this thing called the Pittsburgh Promise, where they got together, they emulated it off of city Kalamazoo, Michigan, which Kalamazoo apparently had some billionaires, and they all got together and said, we're going to provide, you know, scholarships to everyone who graduates from the schools, and you know, and so we got the Pittsburgh Promise, and you know, we created the Braddock Promise, you know, to help you know, do the same kind of scholarships for young people graduating from school. And again, this is through corporations, through foundations, through governmental agencies, through grants. I mean, you have to be creative. I mean, at the end of the day, I just watched how folks have been bootstrapping it here in York, and it's the same hustle. Is that there's never enough resources to do what you want to do, and you always have to be creative. Like Levi's, that church would have collapsed and gone away if it wasn't for the money from Levi's. Quite, because to get $1 million, it just doesn't happen like that. So we're open to whatever avenue, as long as the money comes from an ethically, I wouldn't take it from Halliburton, but or something, but Levi's Levi's stepped up.
Mayor Braddock, first of all, I want to praise you for your authenticity. I find it exceptionally rare in politicians and elected officials across the board to have someone as authentic and honest and straightforward as you.
Did you guys give him that question too? Yeah. I was going to say that my staff deserves a raise because I'm getting these set up.
But in relation to youth civic engagement, to what degree do you see that in Braddock, across Pennsylvania, and what do you think we could do to increase that as one of them?
Youth civic engagement?
Yeah.
I think one of the most interesting phenomenons recently in politics has been how young people have embraced Bernie Sanders. Yep. Like, how can a grouchy Jewish grandfather, that looks like Larry David, be like taking on every young person goes, not every college campus I go to, it's like, Bernie, and I'm like, I can't explain. There isn't a political scientist alive that could explain that. And except for maybe authenticity, and I joke about my appearance because it's worthy of joking, but I am what I am, and not to sound like Popeye, but it's like, if you think that your senator should wear a suit, then you're probably not going to vote for me. If you think tattoos are a disqualification, then I regret that. But at the end of the day, I'll always tell you what I think. I don't hide from questions. Accessible, and this is a straight up authenticity play on my part, because think of what you would do for 40 hours to 50 hours a week for 11 years and be paid $150 a month to do. And that's how passionate I feel about social justice and urban renewal, and not giving up on Pennsylvania's great legacy towns, and young people, and gun violence, and mass incarceration, all these things that we've been working on. And it's like, and I'm doing that because I really believe in it, and I'm glad that it comes through. But if you were going to focus group what a Senate candidate looks like, I guarantee it's not going to be this. But at the end of the day, I can only run and be who I am, and so far so good.
And you did get dressed up today, you're not wearing shorts.
Yeah, exactly. Levi's, by the way, yeah.
I think you're going to like this one.
Mayor Fetterman, my name is Delma Rivera. I'm the Diversity Education Specialist at Central York School District.
Oh, hey,
and
go Panthers.
And I am also a Central grad myself. And we are quite honored and happy with what you've done. And we also wanted to let you know that we have created an award that we give out at our diversity celebration each year, which is a Making a Difference Award for a Central graduate. And you have been chosen as our winner for this year. And so I wanted to invite you. I have the invitation here. And if you are available, it's on April 28th. And we have an invitation for you to tour. You said that you had not toured the new high school yet.
I haven't been to
So please let us know if you'd like a tour. We will
I would love that
for you.
April 28th is 2 days after the primary, so I may be really, really busy or really, really not busy. I don't know. But yeah, I would definitely. Yeah, exactly. And I could be either really, really happy or maybe a little subdued. I don't know. But we'd be honored to attend. Yeah, that would be great. Thank you. And I'm blown away. I don't know what to say.
Okay, we have time for one more.
Yes, I have a question. I read in the paper a lot about, we talk about the investors coming in and buying these properties. I noticed in the paper there would be people transferring property like $2,000. is there any way that we could get together? Do you have any ideas how we might be able to get together where we could have government and the private sectors sort of put together some type of a financial pool where people that the home ownership, that's going to be the key to the American dream, owning homes. And if there was a way that government and private sector could put a type of pool of money together so that people could buy these homes, a couple $1,000, $5,000, and the banks aren't generally receptive. So would you think of any kind of way where the private sector get together?
I think land banking, for example, is really useful, and sometimes that just involves vacant land. But in my community, like let's, for example, a neighboring community, North Braddock, it's a separate community. They have 400 houses on the abandoned that need to be torn down. I mean, think about that, 400 houses that need to be torn down, and they cost at least $7,000 per house. I mean, think about that. I mean, like, think of the resources and think of the waste and the landfill and everything like that. And it's like, and I agree with you, like there are some agencies that are fixing up, vacant homes and that are in rough shape, but not on the kind of scale that I think we should be. And that all gets back to, reinvesting in communities like that. Like it's so much better. Like my wife and I live in an old car dealership across from the steel mill, and it's like, I love repurposing old buildings, and I've seen some wonderful examples of that today here in York. My father's company is in a beautiful old Victorian mansion on West King Street. So I agree with you. It's like, it creates affordable housing, it alleviates blight, it preserves the architectural integrity of the neighborhood itself. I mean, if you can pay $50,000 to help somebody fix up a house versus 10 to bury it in a landfill, I mean, to me that's a no-brainer. But that's also a big matter of resources as well too. And currently, communities like mine are starved from them. And again, that's what I would like to champion. If I'm given that chance.
Okay, well, thank you so much to everybody for coming out. We appreciate Mayor Fetterman for joining us today.
I just want to, and thank the Martin Memorial Library, and thank you guys for putting this together. Thank Mike for taking the time to really embed himself in Braddock. It was like, he spent the whole day there. So, thank you, and thank you for that incredible announcement. And thank you for the incredibly thoughtful questions, and thank you for the best soft pretzel of my life this morning.
John's going to be at the Holy Hound Tap Room from 5 to 7 tonight for meet and greet.